Hey, everybody.
Hi there.
How's everyone?
Good.
Okay, so we are moving along. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm hungry. I always get hungry right about now. So yeah, usually early dinners, but not today. So we have we're finishing up Medicine Man. I hope I hope you enjoyed it. We have a reflection of the book at the end of the week. I did make some adjustments. Let's just go through that now because I wanted to let students know. I made some adjustments for myself and for you. So hold on a second. Let me see. Let me share this screen. So I took out the last assignment right here. I unpublished. It's not going to show on your end. So I took out the reading response for enrollment and blood quantum. I just felt it was too much for just so you could focus on your research papers. So the next reading assignment is your last. It's due right here. But what I did was I made all the assignments due May 20th. You'll notice it used to say the 31st. Where are we? So, and yeah, so everything's due May 20th, so I can start grading. But I looked at the grade book and I noticed there was about 15 students didn't turn anything in for since the beginning. So although I'm pretty flexible on the on the due dates for this particular class, I'm not like this in my other classes. But I will send out a notice for folks who are on the fringe, who haven't turned in anything by the end of the month. And the reason why I'm doing that is I want students to receive W's instead of F's. So so just be aware, look on the lookout for that email or announcement. If you're not on the list, you will be dropped. And so I just want to set that up now so you're not surprised later. And that's because a W is much more, what's the word? It's just better than an F. An F is not something you want. Anyways, so my advice would be start getting caught up on those assignments now, so I know that you're there and you're participating, and you're going to succeed. So if I'm not getting any assignments, just be ready for that. And there's extra credit opportunities. There's different ways to make up for that. Okay, so that's the administrative stuff out of the way. Today I'm going to show an interview about an interview of Ron and Virginia Christman. It's a Viejas group, a couple, and so I'm going to show that at the end. And so I want to make sure I have enough time for that. It's going to go over an hour, so I'm going to kind of make sure I have enough time for that. But I do want to start today with it's the Campo Shootout. So this, let me go to the canvas. I put it here at spring break, and I'm sure many folks maybe didn't read it yet. So if you had a chance to read it, if not, well, I wanted to look at, can you guys see that?
Mhm.
I think can you read it? Okay. So yeah, so I want to start off this was actually an in Medicine Man book. So I'll just read it from the top. Fiesta on Southern California reservations were popular during the early part of the 20th century. These events were initially celebrations given as an obligation by a captain of a tribe or band in honor of those who had died in the recent past. And this is Harrington in Blackburn, 1976. That's the source. Fiestas were usually centered around a main plaza or square where dances and other events were held. The plazas were surrounded by open-air ramadas used for concessions and seating. By the 19th century, the traditions of the Catholic Church melded with native practices, and the fiestas began to be associated with saints' fiesta days. So they were an adaptation to Catholicism, but they were already there before. As of the 1920s, fiestas were amalgamation of Anglo and Indian traditions that included non-Indian promoters and vendors, pie and watermelon eating contests, rooster pulling contests. They'd pull a rooster apart, and modern and traditional dances. During this time, fiestas were attended by Kumeyaay from other reservations, as well as Anglo and Hispanic visitors from outside the reservation. In 1927, the old fiesta grounds were the site of the most dramatic events in Southern California Indian history. Friction over government control on the reservations between the federal authorities and members of the Mission Indian Federations, an organization made up of Indians from numerous Southern California reservations, have been building over a number of years. As Indian dissatisfaction with federal government on the reservation grew, a number of organizations developed seeking the right to native self-government. The MIF, Mission Indian Federation, was one of the organizations that arose in response to what was perceived as a paternalistic federal bureaucracy. Federation members appointed their own judges and tested the Bureau of Indian Affairs. They also appointed their own police officers. Authority on the reservations through acts of self-governance in defiance of federal authority. However, it should be noted that the Mission Indian Federation was not embraced by all. There were pro and anti factions. My family was anti-federation, the Benegases. On July 1927, the second day of a 3-day fiesta in honor of Nuestra Senora del Carmen was being held at the old fiesta grounds in Campo. BIA Mission Indian Agency Indian policemen, in conjunction with the officers from San Diego County and under the direction of George Robertson, the local subagent, moved in to make the arrest for alcohol consumption. This was during the time of Prohibition, which was a federal offense on a reservation at the time. Non-Indians, George Robertson and Deputy Sheriff Kennedy, the two BIA policemen, Jim Benegas of Capitan Grande and Mariano Blacktooth of Paula, entered the dance floor, while Deputy Sheriffs Charles Murray and King Powell with Indian policeman Juan Leo were at the gate examining cars for alcohol as they entered the reservation. Robertsons and others confiscated a jug of alcohol and arrested Tom Helmiup and were leading him towards the gate when they were confronted between Mission Indian Police and the federal and county authorities. MIF members in the Campo Fiesta, including Helmiup's brother Marcus, intervened to prevent the arrests. Wielding clubs, they succeeded in liberating the prisoner from Robertson. Benegas fired a warning shot into the ground, according to Ellis. After a struggle, Mission Indian Police with badges, Jose aka Santiago Mesa and Francis Cuero of Campo and Jose Osuna of Conejos, took the disarmed Benegas and Blacktooth into custody, dragging them to center of the dance floor where Federation police enclosed them in a circle. Meanwhile, the officers stationed at the entrance heard the gunfire and rushed to the dance floor. There was a standoff as Robertson, Powell, and Marcus Helmiup anticipated having to fire their weapons at one another in self-defense. Finally, Leo and Helmiup exchanged fire. Leo was shot 3 to 4 times by Helmiup. Powell began firing. Frank Cuero was shot twice and died. Helmiup, meanwhile, tried to retreat, but Robertson and Powell were firing at him. Helmiup fired at Robertson and wounded him with 2 bullets. Helmiup was shot in the neck and died. Several people were injured during the confrontation, including other MIF members and members of the county sheriff and BIA group. On July 20th, 1927, the San Diego coroner's inquest found the federal and county agents were responsible for the riot and deaths. The federal government responded. Sorry, I should have did that earlier. So the federal government, where was I? The federal government responded by charging 10 Mission Indian members with conspiracy and attempted murder. After a protracted legal battle, the government finally dropped the case in 36. The old Fiesta grounds continued to be used for only 2 more years. After 1929, tribal fiestas were held in the area of Campo Indian Agency Schoolhouse Complex, just south of Highway 94 and south side of Campo Creek. So this was when my great-grandfather was shot and killed. And what's not in here was he actually went to the Los Angeles hospital where he died. So his death certificate's in Los Angeles. And so this incident, so Juan Leo was also shot. There's photos of him in the Davis exhibit if you're interested. He survived. So there's a lot in here that's not there's a lot that's not in this particular incident. So you kind of have to piece it together. So this is on page 199. So so this is what Ada talked about, which was interesting. So she talked about from her Protestant Puritan mind, she called Saturday nights were becoming orgies of debauchery. 198, page 198, Volcan, Mesa Grande, not sure. So she talked about the Fiesta ground. Fiesta and Mesa Grande or Volcan was around June 24th, and Inyaha was September, October. So you could see the circuit went around. So it started in Volcan and ended at Inyaha. And then Campo was probably, where does this say? When was the Campo Fiesta? I don't know if it has the month there. Oh, July. Yeah, so July. So you can piece together all these like fiestas were at certain times, and it was a circuit. So you'd have Mesa Grande and the Campo in between, and then Inyaha at the end, Verona somewhere, and on and on. So Juan Leo, she talked about, was one of the finest Indian men, the chief, absolutely fearless, a man of solid physique. He wore his uniform well. So Juan Leo, she talked really good about Juan Leo and my grandfather, Jim Benegas. So she talked about there was bootleggers playing cat and mouse with Indian police. The Campo Fiesta was on July 7th, she put. This says July 16th. So you always get these little discrepancies in dates when you're doing this stuff, but they're roughly, give or take 10 days. July 7th, Juan Leo, Jim Benegas. Juan Leo was shot through the lung. Mr. Robertson shot in the abdomen. Marcus Helmiup and Frank Cuero were killed. And the doctor is the one that dressed their wounds. So that's something I think that's really interesting, that the doctor was the one that they called. Obviously, there wasn't another doctor. So all these stories intertwine into one narrative. So she called liquor the curse of humanity, have been the cause of the loss of 2 lives. There's no mention of Jim Benegas, probably because he went to the federal hospital in LA where he passed away. So yeah, so I just wanted to start out with that, the Campo Shootout. I've heard a couple versions of it. It is one of these really obscure type of, but one of the things that's interesting is this was the Mission Indian Federation and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. This was that moment where these 2 worlds were colliding. And just like the Democrats and Republicans, you had 2 kind of understandings of the right way. And no one really knew at this point what was, wait, is my cat? Hold on a second. Get out of here, Mama. Get this cat out. Sorry, I'm allergic, so I'm trying to get that cat out of where I sleep. So yeah, so this, it's important to know the small story, but also the big story of what this really meant. This was the Mission Indian Federation was this kind of movement against the Bureau of Indian Affairs. They wanted to relinquish our paternal duties, our rights, but not the government's paternal right or obligations. But give us title to our own land. So it wasn't. It was trying to basically get back to where we started, which was our own sovereignty, real sovereignty, not subjugated by the United States sovereignty and all that. So it's a big narrative that basically a political science discussion at that point. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that to light. All right. So let me see where we are. I have the second half of the book. Any other notable things? Was there any, oh yeah, I guess Pearl Willis, he's in there. She talks about Pearl Willis, page 279. And he was one of the main Mission Indian Federation of folks. And so, yeah, this was a great debate at the time. And you have John Collier going to the reservation, criticizing the BIA as well. So it wasn't just Indians criticizing the BIA. It was also the government realizing, like John Collier, that the BIA is incompetent at, more or less. They weren't doing their job. They were a failure. And it's actually came out that the BIA embezzled millions of dollars and no one knows where it went. So that's, the BIA doesn't have, there's not too many, what's the word? Redeeming qualities. By the time you get now to the present day in the 70s and 80s, BIA is like basically, impotent, has no power, no money. And we have a much different relationship now with the BIA. Since the 60s, actually, it started to degrade. All right, let me just see what else I want to talk about. How about when they went to Saquon? Did everyone and there was the controversy of the San Diego Sun printing the conditions of Saquon. That is on page, where is that? Excuse me. Okay, so yeah, so on page 170, it shows the Saquon conditions. And then there was a series. So I don't know exactly what page for that, but what happened was the San Diego Sun, and I don't know if that's the legacy of the Union Tribune, but they did a series of the conditions in Saquon, and they started highlighting basically the reservations were third world countries. And that's not even an analogy. It was just like going to a third world, and no one really knew about it. And so once it started getting published in San Diego, then that was also the Bureau of Indian Affairs being criticized locally of what they were not doing. So like I said, there's really no redeeming qualities about the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but it's important to remember that the Bureau of Indian Affairs came out of the Department of War. So we are now in the Bureau of Land Management, like reservations are part of the same thing that does, national parks, so now it's more like a benign, but it's the BIA started from the Department of War, which is reminding of our status with the government. We were at war. We were considered the enemy, the terrorists for the United States. And then that finally evolves into the, like the BIA. And then eventually now we're in like the Bureau of Land Management, just to give you this weird evolution. And so there's really no precedent for the American Indian experience in any other country politically. So it's truly a remarkable study and demands. So yeah, so on page 226, so the Sun prints a series on the Saquon. So you spelled Saquon funny, that highlights the squalor. The Sequan generated food, money, clothing drives to all the reservations. And what I found was cool too, and I'm going to kind of bounce around, is I never knew this, but my great grandmother received money for the rest of her life after my great grandfather died. So she received an additional, first a $600 and then a $60 a month after Jim's death. So that's right at that same thing. But so one of the things too that she wrote about is that the Sequan affair really messed up the doctor. And she said it led to the degradation of his health. She called it on page 232, that she blamed the Sequan affair on the chronic health deterioration of the doctor, because now the doctor, everyone was like looked upon in a different light. And the doctor was blamed. Anyone, put it this way, anyone connected to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Indian IHS, Indian Health Service, was always looked on with suspicion. Whether you're doing a good thing or a bad thing, it was you're guilty by association. So in many ways, like the way my grandfather was looked at because he worked for the BIA, the same way that the doctor looked at because he worked for IHS, is that you're always guilty, just by your association. So I thought it was interesting how she the doctor took that, had that burden, even though he was just a doctor. But you always have to think about, the perspective of the Native community, how you were viewed at. So the Sequan affair really, really changed that dynamic, which is mentioned right here. So the Great Depression hits. Own homes. So if you own a home, you're okay. You have employment. As we talked about, she goes through the Spanish flu. The Native Americans in San Diego County were affected more than whites because of unsanitary and overcrowding conditions. And certainly when you get to the Great Depression, Native Americans were affected more too, because this is when resources dry up, the government assistance dries up. And then she mentions how she has to ration blankets or whatever the doctor gets. Now they got to play Sophie's Choice with the Native community, who's the most deserving, and who can actually say that. I don't know. I'm sure they felt terrible, but if you only got 10 blankets and 20 people that need them, you're going to have to make some hard decisions. So that was kind of interesting to realize. The welfare situation evolves, always put in a bad position. I really liked how John Collier came to visit, or did actually, I think I'm thinking about, I might be mixing stories on that, but she did talk about John Collier, witness passing out material, Fiesta of the Cross. So she talks about vaccines being distributed by the first time, the first Frigidaire, 1932. So this is kind of the beginning of modern society, refrigerators, cars, that's all important. It says reports, TB still rampant. All right. So, okay. I just wanted to mention those things. There's a bunch of more things, but I'll just kind of be rambling. So I'm going to end there. Anyone want to talk about anything in the book? So I'll leave the floor open to the class.
Hi, Coach.
Hey,
I just wanted to share, I went to Sequan Cultural Center a couple weeks ago,
sweet.
and I spoke with Daniel, one of the staff members, and
cool.
we were talking about Medicine Man, and he said he had just found a document that was submitted by Dr. Hildreth regarding his family, I think his great-grandmother, and how he had visited his great-grandmother's home, and it was on government letterhead. And it was a document submitted to the superintendent, Ellis, and it described the living conditions, the home, like the repairs it needed, and how much it would cost to repair. And it had Dr. Hildreth's signature at the bottom. So it was kind of cool to see an example of, what he did and not just described by his wife. It kind of made it more real, the story.
Oh yeah, primary source document.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't, that's always the best. Yeah, it's, he's obviously, some very, very, what's the word? He was a human being with great purpose. That's how I think about the doctor, and his wife was, was really supportive. And it was really think about I just can't imagine his job. So yeah, this was a really good, he did so much for the community, and that's something that should be highlighted. And this will help with race relations, because you really don't think of, when you think of race, it's always negative. There's a lot of positive to it. And if you have that balance, it allows communities to mend the bond that we need to have. And I think Dr. Hildreth is a very good example of that. And I'm sure he did, he did a lot more than just in this book. This is only a fraction of what he's done. So it's nice to find more primary source documents to highlight that. And this would be a great movie, don't you think? That'd be great. So I think we have some excellent, there's so many things that we could do. And hopefully that's where we're going as we can get some of the stuff out there to the masses, because Medicine Man's not even known. I remember I was told about it by my aunt, and I kind of heard it through when I interviewed our family member, Joe Welch. In his interview, he misspoke. He's all Hildreth or something. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, there's a journal, Hildreth. And I was like, okay. And then over time, I found, I talked to my cousin Terry, and she had it in the back of her car, and she's like, I have a copy. I'll go right now. I thought maybe I wouldn't see her again. First, you never know. So I rushed as fast as I could up to Verona to grab a copy. And I'm so glad I did. So, and I read this over the winter break, and it's just a great book. I love it. I like it a lot. So yeah, the challenging thing though is like Missions of California, these books are hard to get. My Mission of California is out of print. So good luck with that. And the sad little Julian Museum is in charge of printing this book. I'm pretty sure they don't have too much money, to get out there. So that's something I would like to, hopefully museums and culture centers like Sequana and Verona, we can establish our own printing press or something and start, printing, helping these folks out. And that's what the Indian Historian Press did in the 60s and 70s, which is the Missions of California. They printed, I think, 4,000 books I could be off on that number, but thousands of books, the Indian Historian Press, which is where Missions of California come. And so basically this material is, relatively only 50 years old that we started getting these stories. So we're just at the beginning, and we need to do more. So anyways.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Julian in a couple of days, and I can pick up more books if anybody wants extra.
Oh yeah. It'd be cool to have a steady flow of these somewhere, not down the mountain,
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be
Well, let me
great.
know.
Yeah. I would say, keep some at the Kumeyaay College would be a good start, or some of the museums down here, Verona, I'm sure, but at the very least, Kumeyaay College, I would say try to keep some copies there. So yeah. All right. So we are nearing the end. So I just wanted to talk about papers real fast. Is everyone doing good on papers? All right. So make sure the papers are, especially all the folks that own ranches. So what I want to do is, let me go back to that screen. We're going to have to break down, and we're going to get to the movie soon today. I just want to do this real fast. I'll put on the film in about 5 minutes, but we're going to have let's see, if you just do the math, we're going to have to break up the presentations into week 17 and week 18. So some people are going to have to go a week early. So if you can't, just kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to need about, I don't know, 8 people to go early, 8 or 10 people to do that. So it's like half and half. So we're going to have about 20 people. So if you can do that, that'd be awesome. Is there how many folks do you think can go early? Week 17, that would be, let me see. All right. So the last day is the 1st. Yeah, June 1st. So it'll be the 25th. So this one. So just keep it in mind. You don't have to answer now, but just, we're going to definitely need that so it's smooth transition. All right. So let me introduce the film. It's going to be, it kind of has hold on a second. So what I'll do is I'll put the film on, then we'll take a break, and then I'll finish it. Okay. So this is Ron and Virginia Christman. They're members from Viejas. This was one of my first interviews. And you can see I'm kind of, green. But that's how you got to start somewhere. Okay. So Ron and Virginia Christman. All right. Here. And I'm looking forward to giving this out to everyone really soon. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to just play it. Oh, hold on, let me change my audio first. I'm going to play it we'll take a break in about 30 minutes and then I'll finish it up. Or actually, that's a good question. Should I just play the film and then end the class early? Is that good? There's no need for an intermission, right? Okay. So yeah, so I'm just going to do that. I'll play about 1 hour and 15 minutes and then we'll end a little early. So, all right, grab your popcorn. And here we go. Oh, wait, gosh dang it. I forgot to do the audio. Okay, internal.
So that Wildcat Song.
Fixed up the grave. By that, I mean, put material, fixed it all up. So after church, they just come out, everything's already fixed. Don't have to get there and start putting material and this. I see that being done now, but I mean, everybody's got their ways, I guess, But I just follow from what I grown up or grew up with, seeing being done, So that's what I still follow. I follow the way.
Who knows what Kumeyaay is? There's
Well, we back on the thing again?
no clear meaning to what the word Kumeyaay means. We generally look on it as a doctor, but a doctor of what? Psychologist. A lot of their practice is psychologically valid. A lot of it was medicine. A lot of it was prophecy, and prophecy is not as hard as a lot of people try to make it out to be. It's just a person that spends their time paying attention to the signs that God's give us, the weather, the people around. If you spend your days looking at just that and just those things, you get pretty good at realizing what's going to happen. And so they want to look at you as some kind of weird prophet And before long, they're calling you a Kumeyaay. But what is it really? Who knows for sure? I'm from God's country. I'm not from Berlin. I'm from San Isabel. I haven't lived there since, 50 years ago, 66, 67, something like that. Lived in El Cajon while I'm going in the Army. When I got out of the Army, I moved to Maryland. Been there ever since. It's about 46, 47 years ago. I sing because in about 72 or 73, a friend of mine, Mr. Elliott, he and I both used to like to go to the doings and going to funerals. There's only one old man that was singing the songs in those days, and they'd have to call people from somewhere else, usually Yuma or Kokopah, somewhere else to come and sing for us. And we wondered why they were doing that. Because at that time, between he and I, Leroy and I, between us, we had about 6 songs. And we'd go somewhere and sing. So he'd sing a few, I'd sing a couple, I'd sing back, same old songs over and over again. But that's what we were singing because that's all we knew. And we talked to it at that time. That was her Uncle George, and asked him, "Would he teach us?" He says, "Well, if you want to learn, you got to come and be here where the songs are at. And if you're around long enough and can show me that you can learn, then we'll start teaching you." And it's a long, hard process.
Bird songs.
Bird songs, yeah. My dad, when I was real little, he used to sing a Kumeyaay. It's Wildcat songs. And he was a big-time alcoholic. And I used to, 8 years old, I used to drive him around, going anywhere to Campo, Mexico, San Isabel, all over. And I'd be his driver, and he'd be drinking and have all his partners with him and going down the road singing songs. There's a lot of them, so I picked up a few of them. So I learned language is not a hard thing for me. I can learn a language pretty easily. And it happened that way with the songs. I still can sing a few of those songs. But so when we made a literal conscious decision to see if that old man would teach us those songs, it turned out that it wasn't such a hard thing to do. And from my understanding of Leroy in our conversations back then, the same thing was true with him. And he was around a lot of people that sang smatterings of this and that song. So he had a background of a few songs of this and that. And so it wasn't a thing that was beyond what he was linguistically capable of doing. There's a lot of us nowadays think of another language as very, very difficult, but it's not. If you train your tongue to take it up, it's just like lifting weights or working on a car or operating a computer. It's what you're training your body to get used to. That's what you can do. You know, and it takes an effort to train something new, but it's still possible. So, and when I lived in San Isabel, we didn't have no running water. We had a spring up the road from the house about 3/4 of a mile. We used to go up and we had a spring dug out. We dug it out, run a pipe out, and the pipe ran into a old cast iron bathtub. And that's where we went and hauled the water out of that. The outhouse we used was across the road. So if you went past our house, well, you went past our outhouse on the other side of the road. and that's where we lived, in a little trailer. because the old house burned down. So we lived in the trailer, eat by wood. So living with her, when we moved to Maryland, older house, still had the wood stove in there. You fire up it had a whole bunch of pipes in there, and back in the old days, those pipes ran to a big tank, and that was her water heater. You light a fire, and that heats your water. But in those days, we probably ran out of electricity. Something would happen with the electric, maybe once a month, twice a month. So there'd be no pumps for the water. There was a big cistern up the hill from us. We'd go haul water down there. And same thing, fill the bathtub with water so we can flush the toilet and have water to drink. And that's the reason why we moved out in the summertime, late spring, summertime, early fall, lived out in Ramada because it was just plain a little more comfortable.
One thing, while we're on the subject, I'll get back to the gourd after this. Something you talked about in a previous interview was you asked the question to yourself, is life better? Is life different than it was back then and today? And you basically said life wasn't much different than it is today, although we think it is. You talked about your shoes.
We can get more crude than that. I still get up in the morning and go to the bathroom. I'm hungry, so I feed myself. If I'm cold, I put on a jacket. I wear shoes because we walk around out here on hard surfaces and rocks and stuff, tear your feet up. You walk in the barefoot and it's fine.
Yeah.
So is life different? I think my great grandfather did the same thing. Got up to go to the bathroom in the morning, cooked himself something to eat, fed his family, went off to work, whether that was hunting or gathering or making leather, went off to do the same thing I did all my life.
Yeah.
We take care of ourselves. So is life different? No. But yes. It's more complicated because we make it more complicated. It's not because it has to be. It's because we allow it to be, and we think that's progress. But I don't know if it's progress or it's just a whole other way of doing things. But leads up to the same thing. I try to take care of her. She tries to take care of me, and in doing that, we enable ourselves to be able to take care of our kids. And doing that, we teach them to do the same thing so they can take care of their kids.
It's very, I thought it was very interesting how you phrased that. Back to the last comment though, could you explain the significance of the board and the meaning behind it and anything else on the bird songs?
About somebody Malay Mayawa.
Well, I don't think that way. She wants me to relate it to the death ceremony.
Well, that's two separate, yeah.
And bird songs. I'm a bird singer. Been a bird singer for almost 50 years. So, bird songs are not death songs. Bird songs are celebrational life songs. They're about the life we live. They're about what we do and how we do things. Why we do things, how come we do things, and who helps us do those things. It's not about death. There are maybe 16 songs that are very, very religiously oriented and related, but they're not death songs. She's a prayer leader, and she's been a prayer leader for 50 years or more. So natural for her to relate it to the death, but it's not what bird's about.
And my brief experience of bird songs is always at a funeral, so I can understand that as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was really a difference either So,
Well, there is no other side. We've out of a need to continue our traditions, that was the easiest thing to get past the priests. Because back in the day, before the priest came, we used to cremate. 3 days was about as long as you could hold the body without it rotting completely. And in the hot weather, when it's 120 degrees, that body in 3 days is going to be falling apart. Not only will it pop, blow up and pop, it'll fall apart. So you put it away. You got to have respect for that body, because that body was at one time your friend, your relative, your neighbor, part of your community. So that's a whole different way of looking at that, bird singing.
yeah.
Everybody goes around, I'm a bird singer, I do this, I do that. Well, that's fine. But that really saying, from a historical point of view, is I'm a partier.
What's that?
I'm a partier. That's what a bird singer is.
Nice. I would have been a bird singer as well. So back to the board, is there something you?
Okay, I'd like to, yeah, as I started saying about family coming from Los Conejos, about Lena La Chapa being a singer and passing it, singing to his grandson, Callistra La Chapa. Well, Callistra, when they moved to Barrelong, is where George Hyde's mother, Ojillo and Gladys, them, they had moved from Yuma to Barrelong, okay? So Ojillo went and married Callistra, which was my uncle, the one that did the singing. And her son was George Hyde. Okay, Ron just got through mentioning George Hyde as the elder man that was doing the singing and teaching him, and Leroy Elliott.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's who I'm speaking of now, is George Hyde. And his sister, Lily. So when George Hyde had come with his family from Yuma on down,
Kuchan?
he was Kumeyaay Kuchan. And he, like I said, his mother had married my uncle, and so he picked up the songs. And after Callistra passed, he went in one year mourning for, I guess you'd say, his stepfather. And it was at that point that when they buried him, that he threw his gourd in the grave. I'm talking about George Hyde. He didn't actually throw it in, but he had it put in the grave with his stepfather, which meant he went mourning for 1 year without singing. Okay, because his stepfather was a singer, had taught him, and he in turn, respect his stepfather, which was my uncle Callistra La Chapa, went through that whole year. So what they did, being that he was not singing, this was George Hyde, he brought the Kelly family from Yuma out to do the singing for any of the funerals and things that took place there. So the Kellys came out, and until when the year was up, then he, after the memorial and all, then he went back and started singing again.
And what
And
year was this?
this
Approximately?
was back about in let's see, I want to say probably about 58.
58.
I would say about 58, I would think, yeah. Was in the 60s, was in the 50s.
Mhm.
And so when that happened, he went back and sing. So he was the only singer that was around. Because in them days, back in the day there, if a person wanted to sing, or say a child, or they wanted to be taught, they would go to the singer. Say I want my son to sing, I would go up to a singer and or go to George and say, my son wants to sing, would you teach him? And he'll it'd be up to him to say, well, yes, you come to my house, like he had told Ron, Leroy, these guys, you guys want to sing, to meet him or, get together. And so that's how it would be. Nowadays, I see where the changes are. And needless to say, in some tribes, they notice how our tribe is pretty much, and because they, many of the Arizona people or tribe there, they still follow their way very strong. So they see where the singers, because they're singers too as well, they see the singers, how singers act, how the singer, what they do. And so there's kind of, how would I say, a little, well, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that, But the matter of the fact is that it's good to see that we have today a lot of singers.
Right.
But there are the ones that I look personally, that I could say that I look at that are singers. And I guess this is because in Viejas, the last time that Leroy sang, I recall, he was sitting over by John Christman, and he was reading, and he pointed, all the singers there, and he pointed to Junior, Rel, and Freddie Largo. He come out and he said, you guys are the singers now. Pointed right to Junior. Well,
Yeah.
Rel Christman and Fred Largo. He went out, so I was sitting there. So for a while then I thought, I heard that. So I went out and I said, Molo, I said, what's wrong? I said, I heard what you said, and he goes, yeah, he said, them guys, they're the singers now. And I said, oh. And that was the way I look at it now that he's gone and everything, that was, as a singer, his blessings to them. And so look at Junior, my son, Rel Christman, Fred Mertz. Oh, Fred Mertz. I mean, we used to call his dad Fred Mertz. Fred was my uncle, Fred Largo. But anyway, we call him, so Fred. And I look at them as the singers.
So while we're on the subject, is there,
And this is what I meant about when I said that about putting the gourd in the grave. You don't do that unless, same thing with the hair cutting. That's a ceremony. You're either going to follow the ceremony or you're not going to follow it. Now, if say there's you're in grief and you're in mourning, but there's a function that's going on, and maybe you're part of that function or you're running that function, but being that you're in the mourning and grieving stage, you can always have someone else do it, and you can be there watching, but not participating. Okay? And people will see that and they'll say, yeah, they'll know, somebody else is doing it, You designated someone else to carry on or do it, you're just overseeing it.
About 10,000 years after creation, my cow was looking at everybody, and we were all raising hell and having a good time, doing whatever we thought we wanted, treating people however we thought we wanted, treating the ecology around us however we felt we needed to do in order to continue our survival. My cow was not happy with that. So I thought about, what should I do? How can I teach these people without forcing them to know? Because if you force somebody to know, then they don't know nothing. They do things by rote, but they don't know. They don't know what's behind it. It's like religion. You don't know religion until it's in your heart, not in your mind. But so my saw that, And he decided that he was going to give them a ceremony because he noticed mankind, we like ceremony. We place more emphasis on the ceremony than we do on what the ceremony means. It's got to be done certain ways, this and that. So he gave it to an animal. So I'm not going to name the animal what happened to him, but it didn't work the first time. Because that animal took it and tried to use it for his own. It's going to be somebody grand and grandiose and have control of the people. That's not what Wildcat wanted. He wanted the people to learn how to behave. So he gave it to another animal. That animal came and did pretty near the same thing. Because you got to remember that these animals and all these people, they all lived together. In those days, they could talk and communicate with one another just like you and I do. The same thing, he wanted to be somebody to be looked up to. Give it to another animal. Same thing happened. Wanted to be who they were and what they did, how they could help everybody. And by helping everybody, that made them great, made them somebody to be looked up to. Finally, found another animal we call Tukuk to this day. Tukuk was very self-deprecating, didn't think much of himself. Gave him those songs, taught him from one end to the other, how people should behave, how people should relate to one another, how people should relate to the ecology around, and in so doing, make a better place for all of us. Because at that time, we were all friends with one another. We knew Sam the Crow or George the Badger. We all knew each other, first name basis. We could all talk to each other. It's our own inability to accept each other as equals is what brought us to this point where we're completely separated from the animals. And by white man's terminology, we look down on them because we're better than them. That's ridiculous. We're all living off the same thing, Mother Earth. But anyway, Tukuk took those songs and brought them to the people to sing. And there's only a small number of those songs that are actual prayer songs, asking to hear the prayers, asking to recognize the last path that we're on, asking to recognize people when they show up. And that's what the word is about. It's not about going to a funeral so we got to sing Tukuk, because that's not the funeral songs. If you want the funeral songs, you can go to the archives and they got copies of them. They don't know nothing about what they mean or how they're actually sung, but they have copies of them.
Yeah, and pardon my ignorance, but what's the reason for calling it a bird, the actual animal?
Because the animal came, the Tukuk is a bird.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is there a certain type of bird, or is it just?
Yeah, I see them around every now and then.
Do you know the name of it as far as the?
Come and sing with me 10 years, I'll tell you.
Okay. One thing that was interesting that you showed me through, Ron, was how we used to have a cremation on, I think you said an 8 by 8 by 8 block of wood in the old days, and cremation is also in our creation stories. It says we used to cremate ourselves. You commented on basically the body would be on top of an 8 by 8 by 8 of wood, and
Well, it's kind of taking that too literally.
okay, yeah,
We're talking about logs, sticks,
Yeah.
approximately 8 by 8 by 8 would be enough to
big pile.
burn the body down. It takes a lot of heat, some 2,500 degrees or something like that, to break the body down completely. So it's not a block of wood.
Actual block.
No, it was about approximately an 8 by 8
A big pile of wood.
pile of wood.
And then the ashes would be put in to a place only the family knew, like in a little.
Well, it depends on a whole lot of different circumstances. Depends on where you're at. It's like if you're over by Incapla somewhere, it's probably too rocky to dig a hole.
Yeah.
But those guys that know how to run those can make the ashes fall in a little hole because of the way that wood is piled up. It's quite naturally falls into one area. It's not just like we build a bonfire, then we have a big old pile of ashes. They got the wood pile so those ashes fall into a small place.
Yeah, it's interesting because we don't do that anymore, and I think a lot of us don't realize that's how we used to bury ourselves as cremation, even though it isn't a creation story.
You know, I was talking about that Paulino La Chapa. Do you know he was? I was told that. Well, I wasn't told. I got the paper, but they at that time they had his age kind of mixed up because so old, and total blind that his eyes are white. I mean, literally white. At that age, he was the oldest man around. But he was the first one that was in Ericsson's mortuary down in La Mesa.
First Indian or first?
Yeah, they said he was the first Indian they took there. And then the family got there and they got him though. They
Got him out of there.
Yeah, they brought him out, but he had gone there to the mortuary. Because them days they had to be buried, like Ron said earlier, they had to be buried very, very early. And you had asked about family doing things.
Yeah.
I wanted to my understanding from what I was told, and this comes from my family because the way they lived, and like I said, prayer leaders and all, they also assisted other family members in what to do, what not to do, in preparation for burial or memorial or whatever it might be, and so, with that they took care of their own. By that, they would say a family, the family themselves, they would take care as soon as some family member passed. They would, like I say, cleanse them, get them ready. They had to get them ready before, depending upon the weather, and within 2-3 days for burial. They wouldn't let anyone come and or they wouldn't let someone else do everything for them and just sit back like we do today. Oh no, you can't, you shouldn't dig grave, or oh no, you shouldn't be cooking, or oh, that you hear all this. And I mean, I have throughout the time that from where about 50, 60 years, I can remember, from where I seen to where it is now, it's like, my gosh, what's wrong? The family, it's just like the family stepped back and just pushes their loved one out there, when it, I remember the closeness of it, with everybody doing things. And they would say, and then what they, like my aunt would tell me, she says, you know what? She says, Virginia, she says, if anything happens to me, make sure I don't want everybody coming over and touching me, So I asked her, I said, well, why? And she said, oh no, suspicion, that's what they call suspicion, which means they might witch me, In other words, in the modern term now, they say it's like bad medicine. They'll hear some say, oh yeah, they'll bring bad medicine. So that was why they did their own. Now, if a close friend or someone would come over and they'd say, I'd like to help. Is there something I can do? Not just, as we say, just going right in. Oh yeah, you got to do this, that. No, they'd say, is there something I can do? And they would say, whatever they may want them to do. And I'd say, well, you can help in the kitchen, but it'd be all, a family would cook. Family took care of everything. And everybody that came, they wanted to bring something, they would bring their shawi, or they'd bring their meat, or they would bring whatever they could, or they'd bring their labor and they'd help. Say, is it okay? They'd always ask, okay, I go, oh yeah, coma, go ahead. In other words, they would say. So that's the way that was like that. Now I sit, and and it's good because people still have that. They'll still come and say, what can I do to help? Today, people come and say, what can I do to help? Is there something I can do?
Well, that's part of the ongoing change that's going on, because the older people will come up, can I help? What can I do? What do you guys need? The young people don't do that. Your age and younger, they just show up and do whatever they feel or they're comfortable with doing. There's no, can I help? Is it possible I can do something for you? Can I bring something? They don't do, that doesn't happen no more. That started out with the singers long ago. Before, if you wanted to learn how to sing, you came, and every time that singer got up to sing, you had to go up and ask him, is it all right if I sat with you and help you with these songs? Shake his hands. Every time. It doesn't matter if you've been there for the last 10 years. Shook his hands. Can I help you? Is it all right if I participate? Because you don't know where he's at spiritually. You don't know where he's at in his frame of mind, I guess we should say. Don't do that now. Now these young guys that have been calling themselves singers because they've been singing for 5 years think it's their right to come and sing. Think it's their right to come and sit down. They see an elder come up and sing. Nowadays, they put that elder out at the end of the line somewhere.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Whether that man knows how to sing or not, he shouldn't do that to the elder. He should be somewhere near the up with the leader. The leader is supposed to bring the songs, and he brings a couple helpers, 2, 3 helpers, and then everybody else is filled in. If you want to fill in. Nowadays, they feel like they got the right to come there because he's been practicing with this guy for 10 years. But so what? That's not respect to the singer, and it's not respect to the songs, and it's not respect to the spirituality that's behind the reason those songs are being sung.
It reminds me of something Virginia said in our first interview, was said tradition is one of the hardest things to keep. And I thought that was powerful to say.
Well, we don't teach responsibility, and we don't teach the whole of the traditions. We teach, well, this is what they did, why they did it, how long they've been doing it, and then, to your knowledge, has it ever changed? Is there ongoing change? Is it okay to change it? Like she mentioned, people burying the dead, burying their whole family. And that was because of Kumeyaay. And you were very surprised that there was bad Kumeyaay. Well, why? Are they not people? Because they became Kumeyaay, they're no longer people? They all have a different point of view. They all have different personalities. They're all raised and brought up in a different understanding than the one that you personally have. You can only be as concise and as clear as possible as you can be with your own family, because they're raised with you with the same similar circumstance. So you only trusted them to take care of it. And then friends would come and, can I help? Can I help? Well, fine, you let them help. Nowadays, nobody cares about that. It's their right to come and help. They have a right because they were in the kitchen for 4 or 5 different funerals, so now they're cooks. But who asked them to come and cook? They did. So did they come out of respect or looking for respect? It's 2 different things. It's different today because our way of thinking is so personal. Everything is me, and I got a right to do this and I got a right to do that. You got a right to learn it, but you don't got a right to exercise it on me because I don't know. I can't guarantee who that guy in the far side of the crowd is. Is he a Kumeyaay? Maybe he is. Some people, because I don't even know it, but their wishful thinking, their wishful brothers, if you want to call it that, affect people. It's like I told my son, like I told everybody that's come and sang with me for any length of time, if you're going to sing, you got to wear a hat, a headscarf, a cap, because there might be a Kumeyaay, and he'll steal everything you learn from the top of your head, so you cover it. You don't see that too much anymore, but that's the rule, the way it is. You don't be with a woman before you sing, and you're not with a woman after you're done until you cleanse yourself. Beforehand, you got to cleanse yourself. That's why you're not with women. Same afterwards. I wonder how many do that nowadays.
Same with praying. Same thing.
Praying's the same way.
Praying.
You got to clean yourself. You don't, just because you're going to pray doesn't make you holy. What makes you holy and what makes you spiritual is your willingness and ability to pay attention to the small things. And part of the small things is the recognition of everything has a spiritual value, whether it's the burial of the dead or the removal of the dirt from its normal place so you can put a dead there. That's a spiritual thing. It's not I'm digging a hole for a dead guy. You don't got the right to do that. That's God's right to move God's earth where it is. So it's a spiritual thing. You got to cleanse yourself. You got to clean yourself. You clean your soul, clean your body. And you do that by paying attention to the minutia. It's simple. It's not hard. We make it hard. We make it seem like it's a difficult process. But her and I have been doing those things, and we still do it to this day. For so long, that is just part of life. It's not something that we do that's different. So I don't know what you do. You're a occultist? Well, most of like her and most of her friends are all a bunch of neophytes to that place over there.
Yeah.
Me, I'm native spiritual. That's it.
Well, I graduated from a Catholic school, attended Catholic
Yeah,
school.
so she's a bona fide neophyte.
But you know, but our families, you know, when they were
No, you
getting-
were born into God's country. Our elders, and they're the ones that gave it to us. We were born into it. That's something that those guys that run that place have taught us. They go, you're born into this. They threw water on your head, so now you can't escape going to hell unless you give us some money and show up here every Sunday. Nuts?
10%.
Yeah, 10% minimum.
You know, my family went to Catholic school, St. Boniface. It's not there no more, by Morongo. And when they were in Los Conejos, the horse and buggy would wait for them on top, and the family would bring the kids up to the top, and they would take, my gosh, they said about 3 days before they got from top of, there at Berlong to Morongo. Horse and buggy.
Oh my goodness.
They had
And that's traveling very fast that far.
well, I guess.
Yeah, it is. No wonder his horse fell over and died.
That was father's horse that came down the hill up on Vias, and he was whipping it, and I couldn't believe it. Father whipping a horse, poor thing, but I mean,
Yeah.
oh well.
So
They whipped us in our Indian school.
I had a sister meet me about with a big old long stick one time at catechism, so.
Yeah, I think it's actually, I would like to talk about this. Think of some big picture issues. How do you feel about Christianity being called a mission Indian? And this is maybe a loaded question, but the history of the mission period, and how do you reconcile that being native and spiritually a native as well?
Is there I have no need to reconcile it because I disregard it. It's a non-issue in my mind. It's something that I'm well aware of, the brutality and slavery and mistreatment of my people done out of pure ignorance by a bunch of people that had no knowledge of us whatsoever. Their whole life was to empower themselves. And that's not only the church, but the whole system all throughout Europe the same way. It's not like they did us any different than they did anybody else. I mean, at that time in history, they were boiling each other in oil. They were frying each other at the stake. They were beheading each other, chopping each other's hands and feet off. What they did to us is not much different. To say that that was a major lasting effect on me? No, because I disregard it. I think the true history of it is that that's not no different than they treated themselves. Maybe it's even better. Because then if you didn't sign of the cross right, they'd burn you at the stake, hang you, impale you, stretch you, to say that woe is me because they treated us that way. In many ways, they didn't treat us as bad as they did themselves. And because it was a horrible, horrendous thing that they did to us, that's history. We need to learn from it, not accept it as something that we were due. But it is history, and we need to understand it and do what we can to not allow it to happen again. Is that a good enough answer, or you want some more?
That's a very good.
Because they're eating long Dan. Dan, I know it is.
That's a good answer. Well, yeah, there is a related answer. When the, a related question, excuse me. You said you were a part of a protest at the San Diego Mission when they were, or the mission school where they were digging up bones of our ancestors, and you went and protested that. Was this in 1987? Or I'm kind of confused.
It was then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Who was the chairman? Ron was the chairman for that, remember?
No, yes, I'm not from Viennas. I'm from God's country.
No, we're talking about the mission. When there was
Yes.
there was, what's her name, Fern Southcott from Mesa Grande. She was secretary. Karen Togri was the treasurer. You were chairman, and then there was that, and there was.
That's before the repatriation committee.
Before the,
Yeah.
Yeah,
We, they wanted
the bingo, no?
a group of people, or they wouldn't listen to us. Because it started out as a couple of archaeology students, anthropology students brought it to attention of a few people that they're finding lots and lots of native bodies down there, buried haphazardly, obviously, well, to their minds, obviously, without any due process or ceremony. And that happened to be my sister June. And so they were down there, and my sister, I don't know if you know her or not, she's pretty vociferous, or shall we say, to be nice about it. And so they were raving around about it, so we got wind about it, and we looked into it, and yeah, they did. So we got a bunch of people together and had some meetings, and went down there and told them, can we treat these people like that? You know, because they wanted to build a bingo hall on top. You know, that was the whole purpose of it.
old graveyard, I guess.
Well, the whole place is, I don't know if you've been there, but the whole, where the Red Cross is at, that whole thing there is one big giant graveyard. And not only did they have piles of our native bones there, they had a big old giant pile, probably as long as this building is long, the inside of it anyway, of Spanish soldiers piled willy-nilly in there too.
Yeah.
And that's what they really, really done. I mean, they didn't treat us no worse than they treated themselves. You know, but because they treat themselves bad, does that mean that we should let it go that they treat us bad? Oh, no. They can treat themselves the way they want. But our people deserve respect. You know, if we went down to El Cajon and started pulling our kids out, moved women and children out and started raping and pillaging and plundering. How long would we last? They'd show up with the army and we'd be done with. So,
Yeah, that was something, that was, like Ron said, you know, was brought to our attention.
So what came of that?
And what happened was that, well, when you go to the mission, you've been there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you know what we're talking about. Okay, when you go where the cross is like this, where the whole big section is, okay? I remember so distinctly when you walk in like this, right on the right side was where there was soldiers, there were Spanish soldiers. And that could be determined.
if you walk in from the front of the mission to the right-hand side, they have that access to the back where there's a little bit of a museum in there, and then they got a piece where they're recreating part of the old buildings that was there, and then the priest has their house and place over there, and right between those two places there's a big, it's on the south side of it, big lawn there with a cross there, and that's the area we were fighting about.
Yeah, what had happened at that time, we went down when it was brought to our attention, they were, like I said, they're gonna put a bingo hall there, huh? And they had pillars, big pillars, well, where they were gonna put the pillars, they were already had the holes dug. And we looked in and you could, it was very sad because you could see the bones and the skulls in there. You went and looked, and you could just see the square like that, and you could see the whiteness of the bones, you know, where they literally had dug, where they were gonna have the big pillars for the bingo. So, yeah, so I went, took it, like I said, he was, I had mentioned Fern Southcott and Karen Togri and Ron, he was chairman, and was Rosa Pinto there too, and Chris and Tony Pinto, they were there. And then that's when, what's her name, Southcott, I don't know, what's her name, so anyways, at that point, seeing all that, I said, well, we need to get help, you know, we need to get more of our Indian people, you know. Yeah, we knew that there was Spanish people there. We knew that there was, you know, I mean, everywhere they dug, they had them all exposed, okay? They were exposed, you know, where the archaeologists were digging, and of course they had it was just all open. So I said, we need help. So I said, well, so I went to all the reservations. And I remember so distinctly going to Campo. And you think about it, you know, from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, okay, our people, many of them, they don't want to mess around with the dead. They don't want to, oh no, you don't want to mess with the bones because the bones are going to come and get you and oh. And so that's what I was told, you know. I'd gone to Campo, one of the places I'd gone, and a couple of people up there said, oh, Virginia, you better not go there. You know what, leave it alone. Leave them alone because you know what, they're going to come and eat you. They're going to come and get, I ain't heard that all my life. I mean, I heard that, you know, you don't mess with the dead, you don't mess with the bones, you don't, you know, when it comes to that. So anyway, I explained to him and said, you know, we needed, but we had no funds, you know, no funds. But still, so we're just doing everything on our own, and he was with forestry, so, you know, that helped with our, you know, a little bit on us. And so anyway, we all put our money together, and like I said, when we didn't really have no support, so it's just a little hand of us, okay, little hand. And we had, I remember O'Connor, she was the mayor, boy, her and I, we had a big blowout down there too, I guess, you know, and we all had interactions, kind of negative.
Part of what was going on is when we approached the church to find out what we could do to change the situation, they told us that they had no bones there. There was no record of any kind of cemetery there, that it was not in any way a consecrated ground. And we're all, huh? We could understand, to our minds, we could understand that they wouldn't consecrate a bunch of savage Indians. Fine. We've been treated that way forever. We can accept that. But this was probably a couple hundred or more of their own Spanish soldiers plus other church officials that have been buried there and stuff. And this is not consecrated ground. So right away, the church lies to us.
Yes, that's what.
Then the church turned around and went to the city government. And that's why we got in a big argument with Maureen O'Connor over it.
Yeah, O'Connor.
Because they backed up the church.
Mm-hmm.
This can't be. So we invited them. They didn't want to come out and look with us, so we could show them that it's not only a bunch of savage Indians. This is their own people, and they want to do this. This is contrary to everything. Not only that we believe, it's contrary to what they teach. You know, it's like saying, "Well, we'll move your bingo hall from over there on top of your graveyard," and it's okay. Is it? Can we do that to Mount Hope? You know.
So what happened was that we didn't have any support. Like I said, it was just a small little group, you know. And but then we there was a couple of puts at Sierra something helped us a little bit too. Huh? Sierra Club, was it? That helped a little bit.
Yeah.
So there we got the word out, you know, a little bit out. Try to get the word out to people to help. And like I said, it was really sad because they want to admit it or not, our own people, you know, like I said, they said, "Oh, those ones will get you this." And that. We were not going to let a bingo hall be put on. And it was, I mean, you know, it was a sad thing.
So did the
Very, very sad. So what happened, the Monsignor, Eakin, was it Eakin? You know, even there, we were treated really bad, you know, with the church there, the people and the Monsignor, and oh my God, they won that bingo hall. Oh, we went with meetings with courts and stuff like that. And I'm telling you, we prayed. And the bottom line and everything was when it came to the final, for everything to be final, we won. And it was it was just beautiful. So they relocated the bingo hall, which today, if you go through the back way of coming into the mission, you'll see a bingo hall. It's sitting out up on the hill there. So the next step was, well, what are we going to do? Rosie Robinson says to me, Pinter says, well, me, she says, you pray, you run wakes, you do. She said, we'll have wake. What do you think? Do you think Kana Mao? She said, you think it's good? And I said, yeah, we'll have a wake. And I said in the morning, I want that Monsignor to come and say mass. And anyways, you know, it all worked in our favor. And so they were all in boxes. So we had a wake there. Ron and Leroy Elliott, they sang. And we had a little table setting up there. We, again, invited everybody to come and bring whatever they could, you know, a little potluck there. And we had a wake. We had a little square thing, building like, and we had them all lined up in there. And the next day was going to be the day they're going to be reburied. So the thing about it was that it was asked, well, we can bring a tractor and put them in there and just, grade it up. He said, no. Ron says, no. He says, we'll bury them traditional, then shovel. And
that was crazy.
And I'm telling you, and meanwhile, my sister-in-law, Julia, she's out there with science protesting, you know, right inside one of the graves there, the beginning of this. But as it went, it was a fight. It was a good fight, you know, and we never gave up. So what happened at the end was that, well, a date was set. We had the wake that night. And the most beautiful thing that happened was, guess what? All our people came down to help bury him. And that was nice. They came down, put them all back, buried him. Then had a meeting, we all got together. Like I said, it was, you know, the Chris, Tony, Rosie, what's the name? Fern Southcott, Connie, Karen Togrehe, Clarence too, huh? And Clarence Brown and myself. We had a meeting. What are we going to do now? You know, we got them all buried. So it came out to, well, we want it all covered. We want it disturbed, bothered again. So decided to put it all in grass. So today, and then put a cross, one cross there for all of them.
Wow.
And at that meeting, I says, well, you know, what are we going to do? You know, 2nd November comes out, and right away, my Aunt Rosie says, oh, Virginia, Nick and Maria, that's what you're going to do. You take care of them. I've been taking care of them every year since then, 2nd November. I've gone down, he's gone down, we've gone down, and we took our kids down. Now it's my grandkids, and, you know, and really anybody that wants to really come and, you know, pray, you know, I'll go say the rosary. And one time I was there by myself, very late. I was having to come back home for our candlelighting there. But I was there, I remember, and I had the candles and prayed. And of course, I decorated the cross, you know, and I was sitting there praying. When I got through, it was like this. Oh my gosh, believe it or not, it was like a fog this high, all around. I stood and I looked, I said, oh my gosh. I mean, I knew I wasn't alone, you know,
Yeah.
but I was like a fog. You know how you see like a fog?
Yeah.
And I seen all that, kind of looked, and the candles all went down, put them out, picked him up, wrapped him up to take him home so that I could put him away.
Yeah, there's an old saying that the Chikich, the old spirits, they like to walk around in the fog.
And that happened to
That some of
me.
them can actually bring the fog, so
And that
it's
happened to me.
spooky if you like, but
It was very late. And another time, my children were with me, and the same thing happened. We were there, and they were praying, but it was a small one. But the one I was by, it was just so even all around. I don't know. Maybe I got like a weird feeling, you know. But by the same token, yeah, matse is what you get, that, how do you say, a
creepy feeling.
creepy feeling, yeah.
Yeah, the heebie-jeebies.
But by the same token, I knew that they were all with me,
Nice.
you know. So that was what I left with.
So this is 1987. One thing I would, this kind of is, you might think this relates or maybe not, but you seem to be on the front of in a way, Kumeyaay revival. It started in the 50s. You were part of it as far as bringing back the bird songs, and helping change our, you know, and maybe revise some of our ceremonies. And when I interviewed Josephine Whaley, she was she talked about these traditions coming back, and she was kind of confused about them. She all of a sudden, she basically described it. All of a sudden, the bird song showed up, the clothes burnings showed up, and she wasn't really used to that, or you know, it was new to her. So she was in a way kind of confused. And this was after we talked, and you had talked about how you helped kind of bring some of these traditions back that were had stopped being used. You know, especially with the death ceremonies and the funeral ceremonies. So I was hoping you could maybe talk about your idea of Kumeyaay revival and what it means as far as traditions go.
That's a difficult subject, if there is a subject. Growing up, attitude from my elders, and I won't name no names. There's still a bunch of them still alive, or old, but it did no good to maintain Native American lifestyle, culture, and traditions if you wanted to get ahead in this world. And in part, that's real true. So I remember back in the day, my dad spoke real good Spanish because he's from La Huerta Reservation in east of Ensenada, and he spoke good Spanish. And they used to come and pick him up from all over to go buy him beer and wine because he wouldn't sell it to Indians. It was against the law to sell it, but he walked in there talking Spanish like he never talked no English, and buy whatever they wanted to drink. And that's a part of how the outside world looked at us. We're savages, and you can't depend on those savages to operate efficiently in this new modern world. So a lot of our people, whether nowadays want to admit it or not, refuse to practice what for us is cultural and traditional. And then not only that, a lot of them went to schools, different places, or sent to boarding schools, and you couldn't even talk your own language there. That cut your hair, treat you the way they wanted to. Yeah, that's bad, but they did that to themselves too. To say that it's somehow different, it's not. They all wanted you to be like them. But they didn't. They just pretended that, because that made them feel better about what they were doing. So our cultures and traditions were, and are to this day, highly watered down because nobody saw a good reason to continue them. But it dawned on me, by the time I had gotten out of the military, that the truth is, the closer we're able to follow what is traditionally, culturally correct, the easier it is for us to succeed in life, even amongst this outside world around us. Because your culture and tradition, in order to follow your culture and tradition as well as you can, you have to have a lot of responsibility in your mind, and you have to have a lot of respect in your mind, in your heart, for everything that's around you. If you do that, then you can work. Being an Indian does not mean I go hunting every day. It doesn't mean I eat rabbit every day. It doesn't mean I eat lizards every day. It means that I follow my culture and tradition. But I still, what did I do when I was hunting, gathering? What was I doing? I was feeding my family, feeding myself, feeding those around me that were in need, feeding those around me that were hurt or helpless and couldn't feed themselves. That's cultural tradition. It doesn't mean that I took them a deer. It means that I might have bought them a lug of fruit. I might have invited them over for a meal when I know that they were poor. That's cultural tradition. It's not living off the land. That's impossible to do anymore. There's too many white people around us. Too many civilized around us. And civilized is literally opposite of what it means. And by the time I got out of the Army, I realized that the old ways were actually better. They allow you to be who you are, not who Joe Blow down the street wants me to be. And take care of your family, that's hard work. When has it ever been anything else? Man, we got supposed to work 5 days a week. Nowadays, you get 2 days off. Where the hell did that come from?
Should be 4 and 3.
No, I should be work every day. You want to take a real break? Take a vacation for a month? That's fine too. But you got to plan for it so that your family don't go hungry during that month that you're gone. To go to a funeral, to go to a Kuruk ceremony, you had to be willing to leave your family for a week, Because it takes a couple of days to get there, a couple of days to get back, and 3 or 4 days there. So you couldn't go and leave your family starving. And so you killed 2 deers, 5 rabbits, 6 or 7 squirrels to make sure they had something because you were going to be gone. That's the responsibility of being a person. Doesn't matter if you're what color, you creed, or race you come from. That's the responsibility of a person. And that's what, to this day, and maybe even more so than back in the 60s, is so important. But we don't recognize that because he's a photographer, so that's what he does. But he demands 2 days off a week unless somebody gives him something absolutely bitching to shoot with his camera. And then he wants extra pay for it, time and a half. What's that got to do with customs and tradition? Almost nothing. What's that got to do with the responsibility for his family? And it's not only his family, the people that his family has to deal with. Who are their friends?
You also had a really, really interesting idea about codifying our old ways in order for future generations. And it's a big reason why I'm doing
Oh, let's have a good argument. That's what that's about.
it.
Nobody, to my knowledge anyway, has sat down, even within their own family, and decided this is the way it is for us.
Mhm.
Because we're well aware of this, and we need to codify what our actual customs and traditions are. Not what we're told they are. Not what the church or society around us allows them to be, but what they really were a long time ago. And as best as possible in that codification and explanation for why, as far as we know, they're that way. Because it's a need that goes beyond any single generation. Because how can you be what you say you are if you don't even know why you're that way? You know, we got songs that we sing from your cry house, your prayer house, your church, to the grave. Those are the songs for the last trail. We're saying goodbye. We're moms, we're lying on scan moms. So there's songs to sing that last trail. But somehow you go and you hear those last 4 songs that we like to sing at the graveyard. These guys are singing, aren't even singing the last 4 songs for that last trail. And it's okay because they've been doing that for years. And that's now a modification of our custom and tradition. And why is that? Is because there's nothing that's codified. Nothing.
And I would say that to add to that would be there's a problem almost of Kumeyaay traditions being mixed and confused. With,
Why is that a problem?
problem is probably the wrong word, but there's a confusion.
Yeah, that might be better. That's closer.
Because you don't know what is mixed, what is original.
Well, it's because you're, how old are you? 35?
37.
Okay. Yeah. And a 37-year-old, for the most part, pretty more to ask, why do you do that? Easier to say, that's the way we do it, so that's what we do. And then you don't want to go up and say, hey, Ron, why are we doing this? It happens once in a while, but very seldom.
Yeah.
And they mostly will say, well, that's the way they've been doing it, so let's go do it. Well, we'll help them. It's like this singers. I refer back to singers that have been doing that for a long time. Like I say, people feel like they got a right to come in there because they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years. I'm giving everybody a right unless you're Very respectful, not only the songs, but of the singer.
Yeah.
You know, like you hear places, well, that's not the way the songs are supposed to go. When I was told by the old guys, I guess they're supposed to know what they were doing. It's up to the singer to sing his version of the line, because those bird songs are not death songs. So he can sing the way he wants to sing them. It's up to him. If it's got it wrong, the only person that's got it wrong is him. Everybody else is following him.
Yeah.
There is no way, because there's a different way from an old guy. Between me and you, there's two different ways. Different way for a kid, different way for a man, different way for a woman.
Yeah. Well, I think I asked the question because through this process of interviewing elders, I get a lot of different answers. I think Karuk, I got different answers.
For what? A
The
Karuk?
Karuk, and even Eagle dance, some type of variations. But I
Mhm.
was wondering if you could maybe help me understand what you understand from the Karuk and Eagle dance and these ceremonies. And
I might be the only Kumeyaay in this country that's ever participated in doing a Kuruk ceremony.
really,
Yeah, in Sequan.
I do too.
Well, yeah, me and her.
We both did.
We did the last Kuruk up here. We helped do it. We didn't do it because we don't know how to do it. They brought some people in from the Yumas.
what was that like?
Scary.
Scary?
Well, it's heavy duty,
Well,
powerful, spiritual stuff. It really, really, really is heavy duty, powerful, spiritual stuff. If you ever get a chance to participate, go try. You'll feel it. You'll know.
yeah, it is. It's very strong.
And what's it about? Long, long years ago, you couldn't afford to have overnight wakes. You couldn't afford to bring the tribe to your res, to your living place, to marry people. So you'd have 4 or 5 people pass away in your family, in your shuluk. So everybody in that shuluk, everybody in that family, in that clan get together and provide, because everybody they invite, they have to help pay for their travel over, or they have to pay for their travel back. They have to feed them and clothe them while they were there. The Kuruk itself lasts minimum of 4 days. But you gotta have 4 days before and 4 days after. So the shuluk had to pay for all of that. And even now it's cost prohibitive. Very, very cost prohibitive. So they didn't have that many. And it was a way to send your loved one on in a respectful way. Because sometimes somebody go over to visit Uncle Joe and find Uncle Joe been dead a couple days. You know, he lived across the top of the mountain. Nobody went up there too often. So he went up there to see him. So what are you going to do? He's already dead. A couple days, he's going to fall apart. So you burn him right away. Tell the whole family. Make a little doll for him. That's him. And then you have Kuruk ceremony. All the ones that are dead, they call the ceremony the images. They make little dolls. Sometimes they'll be this tall with the clothes, the style that they wore, with their face painted according to their clan, according to what they did in their life. And they would all have them there at this Kuruk ceremony. And they would have enough there that that person could actually live a life if they were still living. That's what the Kuruk is about, and you send them all on. That's what it's about.
The one that was in, the last one that was in, was given by Anna Sandoval, chairman of Sequan. And being that she, what she wanted to do, and of course she had invited us and had brought, well, cousin Vernon from Yuma and Antiola and them, and some others she had brought them because she wanted to have a Kuruk ceremony. And why she wanted to have the ceremony was because she's going to change all the crosses in Sequan. So she'd asked if I could maybe set a tomb or something, because I set the tomb up in boxes. Okay, that, like I say, came over 100 years ago from Los Canejos on up. Okay, and that they had the 12 candles, and every candle represents a month within a year. Okay, and the black is, it's like you get to the end. You know, everything is black until the year is so, when the year comes up, and then everything starts getting light. And it starts, you're getting into another year. The year is over, so everything's been in black. Okay. Purpose of wearing black is the purpose of, funerals and everything in black. From my understanding, that was passed down to me, or told to me. So anyway, she was doing that, and I was doing that. She was erecting new crosses. So what she did is she had, not her specifically, but she had, people take them, and they had the big pile. And so I set up a tomb in black, and she had singers, and I think he was who the singers were, and then she had the ones that did the images. So they did, I don't hate to count them, but I would just say probably roughly about 3, just not all.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
Is there a good, I know there's Kuruk dolls at the clinic, health clinic. Is that a poor rendition of what they?
Those they came from back east somewhere. One of the, I get, I know what you're saying. I mean, I see that, and
Is that what they
but
look
they, well, that clan or that group, I guess you would say, was, yeah. So that's what, it's a good description of what they pretty much, how the images are pretty much made, huh? But it's with a clan. Like he says, the markings and all. So what happened there in the morning, very early in the morning, they burnt the crosses. And I was sitting like this, and you know what? You should have seen the ground. The whole ground like that when they were burning the crosses. Nothing but no whirlwinds. I just sat there and picked my feet up like this and just let them go. All whirlwinds, all, to me, okay, as far as I know, that's all the spirit that they were burning from the crosses. The spirit of the, for the graves that those crosses came from.
or
Yes.
something like that?
Have you seen that?
Yeah, it wasn't a good thing though. But this guy I met, I was friend of a friend, he did some really bad things after I met him. But we were smoking, and there was a whirlwind right next to him. And I was like, what is that? But I knew it was, in hindsight, it was not a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have seen that
Yeah.
smoke before.
But these were, there were different sizes. I mean, and the whole crowd just all grew, and this was just when they were all being burnt, sit there. So I picked my feet up like this and just let him, go. But that was, I think, the last one, huh, Ron, that we know of that was Kuruk. It depends which area you come from, is what I would say. I can understand that from your Bruno.
All right. So, hold on a second. Let me put my mic back. Video. So, all right. I wanted to, excuse me. Let's see, get the chat. Look at my chat. All right, let me just check out. So Fern Morelli, Jonathan said it's his grandma's second cousin. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So, if you have anything to say, just don't let me stop you. But, I wanted to, how come my camera's like that? Maybe it's the lighting. Hold on. All right. I'm all over the place today. Sorry. I'm trying to finish, I'm actually finishing a piece for USD. I'm going to send out to everyone real soon. And I'm going to use that interview in it, which is about, how come that's not focusing? There we go. The 1989 dig at the mission, which Richard Carrico talked about last year. So if you didn't take the class last year, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But there's this, you'll get it. I'll send it out to you. It's actually due tomorrow. So it's going to be interesting to see the reception of it and how it's received by the Catholic community. But I think the interview is there's so much in there. I really like the tradition, the culture, the bird singing aspect of it, all that. So it's really interesting, and I'd spent a lot of time at Ron and Virginia before the interview. So you could tell I kind of had the answers. I was just trying to get them to say what they already told me beforehand. But that was really cool. The overall interview, there was just so much to it. So, all right, anyone, what do you think about the interview? Any questions, comments?
I thought it was pretty good. It was crazy though, like to how they talked about how like everything switched,
Mhm.
like the way we treated each other back then, what we did, how our funerals, like how much when the family, how the family took care of everything during the funeral services. Whereas now, like people in the family, like most of the time they don't do anything, like at all. They ask somebody in the tribe to take care of everything, well, that's the way it is here in Sequan.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting when when they talked about like having kids or the young ones to go up and ask like if they needed help with anything at funerals or to shake people's hands. You don't ever see that hardly anymore at all. It's just that one person's crew that comes in and does everything. And then just like how he touched base on the bird singers, how they didn't go around boasting and bragging that they were bird singers before. And like pretty much now that's what they do, not knocking any bird singers. I'm just saying, from what like observation, like there's a lot of bird singers who are pretty egotistical. So yeah.
Well, it is what it is, I mean, to cook was to cook because of his humility,
Yeah.
and he got the song. So, and that's what I talked about with Junior last semester. If you haven't caught it, was to know the meaning behind the original stories. That's the moral lesson. And without the meaning, the reason why things are the way they are, people will boast, they'll brag, they'll miss the whole point of to cook, which is self-deprecation, humility. And so that's one thing I liked about Junior's interview, which was the burden of responsibility is not only on the young, but on the elders to teach that. Because often, and I kind of take offense to this because I was always on the other side of the fence, the young person offense that doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And that's fine, but it's also responsibility of the elders to show us the right way. And we weren't given that opportunity by the elders. So as Junior said it best, elders need to learn how to be elders too. So it's important to be like, yeah, young people, that's not the way, you're messing up, but also at the same time realize that energy, that effort, that information should come from the wisdom of our elders. And so they have a responsibility to bestow that to the next generation. And that's transfer of knowledge is not taking place. So and that's why, Because I know, I've always been on the other end of it, now I'm in the
Yeah.
middle, so I think it's important to see that young people, it's not just their fault.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah. I
mean?
mean, like myself, I
Yeah.
don't even, I don't and obviously I don't bird sing, but I mean, I don't
Yeah.
like bird dance really, unless it's like here in Saquon or like at a funeral. But I mean, I've already been talked, because I follow like the Northern Plains, the Lakota way of when I dance and, ceremonies, I go out to there. And that's a whole nother story, but I go there. And so I've heard people already like dog me out and be like, she doesn't even dance bird, she thinks she's Lakota and and I'm just like, whatever, there's a reason why I follow this way. And if you ask me, I tell you, but if you're not going to ask me, I'm not going to tell you, so yeah, but it's interesting. And two, the stories that she was talking about, the Karuk ceremony,
Mhm.
and when she talked about those images that they created, it was a man and a woman, and it was like it's like a life-size doll. And it was crazy because when they brought out those dolls, it was like midnight, and it was on the old powwow grounds, and it was like an arenas type setting. And they brought them out, and they were like, two people were carrying them, and it looked like they were dancing like on their own. It was so creepy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then she had like, Anna asked like a certain person from each family to fast for those days of the correct ceremony. And they had asked me, and oh my God, it was crazy. Especially when that came out, it was like, oh, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ron said it, it's scary
Yeah.
because you're you're kind of opening a portal. That's how I'd explain it.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you're clean, you fasted, you do all the spiritual preparation. So only the good medicine comes through. And I
Mhm.
think that's one thing I got from Ron and Virginia, especially, is like how the right order of things is essential, you know, um, and that's a very big debate though. So some folks say the whole Karuk thing shouldn't happen because we're not going to do it right. We only know like 5 or 6 songs, and there was a bunch. We don't know all the songs. Then there's that deer hoof rattle. I think it takes 30 deer to make one. So you have all these like very, very, everything's got to be perfect. And so some folks say because you can't do it perfect, don't do it at all. Others say do it. So that's a hotly debated issue. And so the fact of it coming back is a huge source of debate within our community. And that Saquon, yeah, I heard about the Saquon Karuk ceremony. And like, just to give you background where I'm from, like I didn't even know the Karuk ceremony at all, period, until I started like 5 years ago. So I started completely from zero. And then I realized, just like a lot of these anthropologists said, the natives in the mountains, that's where they were the most resistant and resilient of keeping tradition, keeping language. And the ones closest to the mission, like we are the one and only mission Indians, I realized, that deserve the name, the Barona Indians. We came from the mission, right? As El Capitan said. So, we're the exact opposite of that Venn diagram. And so when I went out to Ron and Virginia Christman, they were one of the first people that told me about these ceremonies. And it was just, you see me learning in real time. That's why I like to show my interviews in chronology from the first to the last, because you see like my development. So in a way, these interviews are like a story of like my discovery. So I think that's, and I don't mind, looking stupid on camera. So I guess it was perfect for me. Some people are very self-conscious, but like my wife says, I have no shame. So, but anyways, I really, Ron and Virginia were so gracious to me. The only reason why they decided to do that was because my dad. So they married my dad in Verona, a traditional way. And so that was the only reason why. And so it took a while to get that interview, and they kind of had to vet me out, and make sure I was doing it for the right things and right ways. And I learned so much just in that process alone, like the process was it's like they say, it's the journey, not the destination. I was so interested in the final product, but it was the process that really allowed me to see what was happening and how, like the point of it all. So, and I remember that interview was, so Ron and Virginia also helped me change the contract. So when I did Ron's, in Ron and Virginia's interview, I gave him a contract. It just had the History Center on it. And Ron said, I'm not going to sign that. And thank God, by the way, he said, I'm not going to sign that. No way. And I had done the preparation of Ron and Virginia for hours. I probably put 10 hours. I went over there 3 times, just hanging out with them, you know? And so I went to our lawyer at Barona and he made me I said, redo the contract so Barona has half of the rights. And so I redid the contract. And so now Barona Museum and the History Center own it together. And so I thank Ron for that, because if you study, and again, I was ignorant on all this stuff. So if you study the history of museums and how they treated Native people and how they try to monetize everything and all this other stuff, you don't want the museums to have all of our rights, because they're probably going to, maybe, you know, as leadership changes and as authorities change, you might be on a bad side. So you don't want to give museums that much power. If anything, equal power. I also had people say, screw the museums completely. And I don't agree with that. I think we need each other, but I think we always have to be cautious of the historical precedent museums played as part of the colonization process, and they need to be decolonized. A part of that is to stop trying to own everything and monetize everything. And so that I learned that, and I still got beef with museums, all of them, for that same reason. And I thank God that Ron showed me that and allowed me to redo the contract and change it to reflect an empowerment of our people and the rights to this project. So, and I was so upset though. I remember I came there, you know, Ron came and he looked at the contract, he just walked right out. And I was like, oh my God, because it took about $1,000 a day to film this project, right? Or something like 600 to 1,000. So I had booked it. I had to book the space. I had to book the cameraman, you know, money was the biggest problem with this whole thing. And I remember when Ron walked out, it was just like a dagger to my heart. You know, I felt so defeated. And so I went to like I said, I went to the Barona's attorney, did all that. And I thank God Ron did that. It was one of the best gifts any elder did during this project, because he taught me a lesson that now I try to teach my Native students and any other students to realize what museums are for the Native community, and you need to watch out for those tendencies. And there's I don't want to go into it too much, but you know, look at the life of Edward Davis, you know, the guy who took the photographs of the Karuk, and had that book. And you know, Junior said that he said he wasn't going to do that, and here he is. He made a book out of it. He saved the dolls and all that. So you don't have to look too far to find what Ron was trying to say. And I thank God for that, because now the Barona Museum has half, and it doesn't matter what the History Center does or doesn't do. Those are a part. And it's so imagine me doing all this work and then the San Diego History Center just jacking it, you know, and that's what Ron was trying to say. I have nothing bad to say that I still work at the History Center, but we have to protect our rights as Native people, and we have to protect our sovereignty and not give, you know, half of what we have to anybody. So anyways, it's just kind of a little behind the scenes, you know, that's extra footage for you right there. the life behind the story. So, all right. So anything else? Crook ceremony, cremation, anything else? Okay. So, all right. So I'm gonna head out, and next week we're going to, what are we doing next week? All right. What are we doing next? That's a good question. Okay. So next week is your family lineage. So it's kind of a chill week. I don't want too much from you. All I want is, if you can, interview somebody, interview a relative. If there's anyone you can. So parents, grandparents, extended family. Tell me about your family. Assignment's meant to be fun. Don't worry if you have trouble finding your history. Present your ethnicity using fractions. Like, for example, I'm 1/4 Capeño, Liceño, Kumeyaay, something along that order. I think I'm probably half English or something like that. I really don't know, but I'm just asking you to do whatever your best in that fraction, family tree with fractions. Each paper will, one page at least. And then I'm probably going to have breakout groups, maybe not. We'll see how many folks are here. And so that's for next week. And so please do that before, so we can have something to talk about, or else the class is just going to end. So that's assignment supposed to be done before Tuesday. So please do that. And it's a way you can pass on your information to your future generations. So think of it like that, and you can hand it down to family members as a gift. So a wonderful Christmas present for your family will be this assignment, better than money, better than cards. So, all right. So that's it. I will, in next class will probably be a little short because it'll be family tree assignment. And just make sure you get your reading response to me by the end of the week. All assignments are due May 20th. I would suggest you don't turn them all in then because you still have your research project going. And so I think we'll end it there. And just to remind you, I took away the last reading response. So number 4 is gone. That's the one on enrollment and blood quantum, because I wanted to give folks a chance to do the research project. And that's really the bread and butter of this class. So be ready to wow the whole class with your wonderful research. So, all right, everybody.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes. Yeah, Lisa.
For my Gallup, do I have to do a Gallup or just read how to do a Gallup?
Oh, your poll?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I like to wing things. If I haven't done anything, just
Okay.
go for it,
Okay.
You do, I know statistics have their thing where you don't want to lead people. You
Right.
want to make your questions to where there's 4 different answers instead of 2, stuff like
Okay.
that. So I would just briefly maybe watch a YouTube video, 10-minute YouTube video, and then that's how I would create my poll, and then just have at it. And so it's going to be cool. And then film it. Are you going to film it, right?
Well, yeah, I have to
Yeah.
film it. I'm gonna be so nervous, but I'll do it. I'm gonna do it because I'm curious. Because when I have booths set up in the public and in Old Town and in our watershed, nobody knows. Nobody knows. So I know nobody knows. and they love learning. They really love it. They get all excited, and it's really nice to see.
Hey, Coach, you're muted.
I don't know how that happened. I hit the space bar. Yeah, just make sure if you're going to film something, be aware of do a test run first, check the audios, check the audio levels, all that. Turn the gain up. So that's a big one I learned in my recorder. You want the gain on high usually. Don't put it on auto, because the gain is what makes something more loud, louder. So just check your audio. That's one of the things I learned the hard way doing projects like these. So. All right.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So I'm looking forward to giving you that piece I'm doing for USD, and I'll send. So look for that in the next week. I'll send it out in an announcement. So anyway, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Should be good. So all right, Julie, take it easy, everyone.
Bye. Take good care.
Bye, Lisa. Bye, everybody. Have a good day.